I want you to imagine waking up on day 3 of eating zero sugar, no fruit, no bread, no sauces, nothing. And you are lying on your bathroom floor at 11 in the morning because your head is pounding so hard you genuinely think something is wrong with you. Your hands are shaking, you're sweating, you feel like you have the flu, and you haven't touched a single drug in your life. That's what happened to me. And what's terrifying is that it wasn't withdrawal from alcohol or cigarettes or anything most people would consider dangerous. It was sugar, just sugar, and the fact that almost nobody talks about how brutal the first week actually is. That's exactly why I made this video. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is, and this channel is the place where I test things on myself so you don't have to, or at least so you know exactly what you're getting into before you try it yourself. Now, before we get into everything, I want to be really clear about what this experiment actually was, because the title says 0 grams of sugar, and I know that sounds extreme, and it was. We are talking no table sugar, no honey, no maple syrup, no high fructose corn syrup, no fruit juice, no soda, no alcohol, nothing with added sugars of any kind. I also cut out natural sugars from fruit for the first 2 weeks, just to really test what full elimination felt like. No candy, no chocolate, no flavored yogurt, no store-bought sauces, no protein bars, no granola, none of it. I ate meat, eggs, vegetables, legumes, nuts, cheese, and plain water for 30 days straight. And I tracked everything. My energy levels, my sleep, my mood, my focus, my skin, my weight, my workouts, all of it. I kept a daily journal, so this video isn't based on vague memories or how I feel in hindsight. Everything I'm about to tell you is documented. Here is the thing though. I had done research before I started. I watched the videos, read the articles, looked at the studies. I thought I knew what was coming. And I was completely, embarrassingly wrong about what the experience was actually going to feel like, especially in the beginning. So today I want to give you the version of this story that the clean, polished, before and after transformation videos don't give you. The full truth, the ugly parts, the parts nobody mentions, and yes, the genuinely surprising things that happened by the end that I did not expect at all. Let's get into it. Week 1. The part nobody warns you about. Let me start with day 1, because day 1 felt fine. That is the cruel joke of this whole thing. Day 1, I felt great. I felt motivated and excited and a little bit smug, if I'm being honest. I made myself eggs and vegetables for breakfast. I drank my black coffee. I went about my day. I thought, this is going to be easy. I've got this. Day 2. I started getting a headache around the afternoon. Not a bad one. I drank more water, figured I was just a little dehydrated, went to bed early. Day 3 is when it hit me. I woke up and within an hour I had what I can only describe as the worst tension headache of my life, sitting right behind my eyes. I was exhausted even though I'd slept 8 hours. I was irritable in a way that felt almost chemical, like my brain was genuinely angry at me. I wasn't sad or stressed about anything, but I had this flat, grey, low-level misery sitting over everything. And then came the cravings. Now I want to talk about these cravings for a second because they were not what I expected. I expected to want cake. I expected to walk past a bakery and suffer. And sure, that happened. But the cravings that actually got me were the ones attached to routine. The moment after dinner when my hand just reached toward the pantry on autopilot. The afternoon slump at 3 o'clock when my body was screaming for something sweet. The habit of needing something after my morning coffee. These weren't hunger. They were pure conditioning. My brain had built these little sugar rituals over years without me even realizing it. And now that the reward wasn't coming, it was throwing an absolute tantrum. Days 4 and 5 were the lowest point. The headaches were constant. I was sleeping badly. Not because I couldn't fall asleep, but because I kept waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning with this weird, restless, wired feeling, even though my body was tired. I was snapping at people. I didn't want to exercise. Everything felt harder than it needed to be, and I genuinely sat on my couch on day 5 and thought, is this actually worth it? I kept going. And here is the first thing nobody tells you: the withdrawal is real. It is not a metaphor. It is not people being dramatic. Your brain has been getting regular dopamine hits from sugar, and when you remove them, there is a genuine neurological adjustment happening. The research actually backs this up. Sugar activates the same reward pathways in the brain that respond to other addictive substances. The come down is real, and if you are thinking about doing this and you hit that wall in week 1, you are not weak. You are just going through something that your body genuinely has to adapt to. Give it the full week. By day 7, something shifted. The headache started fading. I woke up, and for the first time in a week, I didn't feel like I was dragging myself through wet concrete. The cravings were still there, but they were quieter, like a sound turned down from a shout to a murmur. I felt like I was through the worst of it. And I was right. Week 2. The fog starts lifting. Week 2 is where things started getting genuinely interesting. The first thing I noticed, and this surprised me, was my energy. Not in the way that motivational content describes it, where suddenly you feel like a superhero and you want to run marathons. It was more subtle than that. What changed was the flatness of it. Before this experiment, my energy moved in waves throughout the day. There was a morning peak, a sharp crash after lunch, a desperate reach for coffee or something sweet around 3, a second wind, and then a collapse in the evening. I had lived with that rhythm for so long, I thought it was just how energy worked. In week 2, that wave pattern started smoothing out. I didn't have the same high in the morning, but I also didn't have the crash. My energy was just there, steady and unremarkable in the best possible way. I could work through the afternoon without needing anything. I stopped watching the clock for my next coffee. That consistency was something I had genuinely never felt before as an adult, and it was so different from what I was used to that it took me a few days to even recognize it for what it was. The second thing that happened in week 2, and this is the one I get the most questions about, was my sleep. I've always been a decent sleeper, but I started noticing that I was waking up feeling actually rested in a way that felt qualitatively different. I wasn't groggy, I wasn't hitting snooze, I was just awake. What I later found out is that sugar, particularly consumed in the evening, disrupts your slow-wave sleep, the deep, restorative stage that actually repairs your body and consolidates your memory. Without that blood sugar spike and crash happening overnight, my body was moving through sleep cycles more cleanly. The third thing, and this one is embarrassing to admit because it sounds so surface level, my skin. I have had mildly oily, sometimes breakout-prone skin since I was a teenager. I had accepted it as just my skin type. By the end of week 2, my skin was noticeably clearer and calmer, less red, less reactive. The connection between sugar and inflammation is well documented. Sugar spikes insulin. Insulin increases sebum production. Sebum feeds breakouts. I had read this before. I had never actually believed it until I watched it happen in real time on my own face. Week 3. The moment I understood. Taste week 3 brought something I did not anticipate at all, and it became one of the most profound parts of this whole experiment. My taste changed. I don't mean I developed new preferences. I mean the sensitivity of my palate physically shifted. It started when I ate a plain carrot around day 16. I've eaten 1,000 carrots in my life. They're fine. They're a vegetable you tolerate. But this carrot tasted sweet to me in a way that was almost startling. Not candy sweet. Something more delicate and complex than that. I actually stopped eating and sat there for a second because it caught me off guard. This happened again with roasted sweet potato, with plain full-fat yogurt, with tomatoes, with almonds. Foods I had eaten my whole life and considered completely neutral were revealing this whole layer of flavor I had never tasted before, because my baseline had been so saturated with processed sweetness that these natural, subtle flavors were invisible to me, and that made me realize something uncomfortable. We have no idea what food actually tastes like anymore. Our palates are calibrated to an unnatural level of sweetness from the time we're children, eating flavored cereals and fruit snacks and sweetened drinks, and we just think that's what enjoyable food is supposed to taste like. And everything that doesn't hit that level registers as bland or boring. The food isn't bland. Our taste buds are broken. I also want to talk about hunger in week 3, because this changed too. Before this experiment, I was hungry on a schedule. And not just physically hungry, but urgently, anxiously hungry, in a way where if I went more than a few hours without eating, I'd get irritable and foggy. The kind of hunger that's actually a blood sugar crash masquerading as hunger. That went away. In week 3, when I was hungry, it was a calm, clear signal. I would notice it, eat, and the feeling would go away cleanly. There was no desperation to it, no mood attached to it. Hunger was just information, not an emergency. Week 4, the unexpected things. By week 4, I had hit a rhythm and the experiment had stopped feeling like an experiment. It had just become how I was eating. But week 4 brought some surprises I want to be honest about, because not all of them were positive. The first surprise was social. Food is social. Eating is how people connect, celebrate, mark occasions. And when you are eating 0 sugar, you are operating on a completely different planet from everyone around you. Week 4 included a birthday dinner for one of my closest friends. I sat there with my plain grilled protein and my sparkling water watching everyone eat birthday cake. And it wasn't even really about the cake. It was the experience of being excluded from something everyone else was sharing together. I don't say this to be dramatic, but the social friction of eating this way is real, and it is underestimated in every piece of content about clean eating I have ever seen. The second surprise was mental clarity. By week 4, my focus at work was noticeably sharper, not in a subtle way, in a writing 3 times as much in the same amount of time way. I don't fully understand the mechanism, but I've since read that glucose fluctuations, the spikes and crashes from sugar, create corresponding fluctuations in cognitive performance. When your blood sugar is stable, your brain works more consistently. This was one of the most practically useful changes I experienced, and one I genuinely did not expect going in. The third surprise was about mood. I want to be careful here because I don't want to oversell this. I did not become a permanently cheerful person. But the low-grade irritability and that flat grey background feeling that I had accepted as just my personality, the one that showed up every afternoon, was gone. Consistently gone. I didn't realize until it was absent how much of my daily emotional weather was being driven by what I was eating. And the fourth thing, the weight. I lost 11 pounds in 30 days. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I wasn't restricting calories. I ate until I was full at every meal. 11 pounds gone. Now I want to be real with you. Some of that is water weight, especially in the early days, because carbohydrates hold water in your body, and when you reduce them sharply, that water releases. But even accounting for that, the change was significant, and I was eating more food by volume than I ever had before. What I got wrong, before I started, I want to spend a few minutes on the things I believed going in that turned out to be wrong, because I think these misconceptions are exactly why people either don't try this or give up early. I believed that willpower was the main ingredient. I had this idea that cutting sugar was primarily a test of character. You either had the discipline or you didn't. What I found was that willpower had almost nothing to do with it once I got through week 1. After the initial withdrawal, the cravings became manageable, not because I was white-knuckling through them, but because the underlying biological craving signal had genuinely quieted down. It wasn't discipline, it was neurochemistry. Your brain stops screaming for something when you stop feeding the cycle that keeps it screaming. I believed that 0 sugar meant 0 enjoyment of food. I thought 30 days of this would be 30 days of suffering through boring, joyless meals. What I actually found was the opposite. I became more interested in food than I had ever been. I started learning to cook things I'd never bothered with because I had to be more intentional about what I was eating. I discovered flavor combinations and ingredients I had ignored my whole life. The constraint became creative. I believed the research, but didn't feel it. I had read everything about sugar and inflammation, sugar and the brain, sugar and metabolic health. I could have given you a lecture on it. But there is a difference between knowing something intellectually and understanding it through your own body. By the end of 30 days, I understood it in a way no article could have taught me. What I'm doing now. Here's where I want to be completely honest with you, because I think the most trustworthy version of this story includes what happened after the 30 days ended. I reintroduced some sugar, not processed, added sugars. I still don't eat those in any meaningful quantity. But I eat fruit. I eat dark chocolate. I'll have a piece of birthday cake at someone's birthday without the social isolation of refusing. I am not a zero sugar person permanently. What I am is a person who now has a completely different relationship with sugar, one where I am making conscious choices rather than just responding to a loop I didn't know I was in. The first time I ate something sweet after the 30 days, I took one bite of a piece of fruit and it was almost too much. My taste buds had recalibrated so completely that real sweetness registered as intense. And processed sweet. The first time I tried a bite of something commercially sweetened, tasted artificial and sharp and almost unpleasant. That recalibration, that shift in baseline, is the thing I have held on to. It's the most valuable outcome of the whole experiment. The thing nobody tells you. The real one. I've saved the most honest observation for the end, because I think it's the most important one. The thing nobody tells you about doing this is not about your body. It's about how much of your mental and emotional life was being managed by food without your knowledge. The afternoon slump wasn't really tiredness. It was a blood sugar crash that had been solved every day with sugar, which caused another crash, which required more sugar. The restlessness at night wasn't anxiety. It was a glucose cycle playing out in my nervous system. The irritability wasn't personality. It was biochemistry. The feeling that I needed a treat to get through a hard day, or to celebrate a good one, or to cope with a boring one, that was a dependency that had dressed itself up as a preference. And I am not saying that enjoying food is wrong. Food is one of life's genuine pleasures. But there is a difference between enjoying food and being controlled by it, and most of us are so deep inside that second category that we can't even see it from where we're standing. 30 days without sugar didn't fix my life, but it showed me a version of my own body that I hadn't met before, steadier, clearer, more capable than the one running on constant glucose spikes. And once you've met that version of yourself, even briefly, it changes what you're willing to accept going forward. All right, if you made it this far, first of all, thank you. Genuinely. This was a longer, more honest video than I usually make, and I appreciate you staying with it. I want to ask you something before you click away. What is your relationship with sugar actually like? Not the answer you'd give someone at a health checkup, the real one. Do you reach for something sweet without thinking about it? Does your energy crash in the afternoon like clockwork? Have you tried to cut back and found it harder than it should have been? If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to try something small before you go. Not 30 days, just 3 days. 3 days with no added sugar, no sweets, no sweetened drinks, nothing processed. And I want you to notice how your body responds. Just notice. You don't have to commit to anything beyond that. And when you try it, or if you already have done something like this, I genuinely want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments below. What happened in your first week? What surprised you? What was harder or easier than you expected? I read every comment on this channel, and your experiences are genuinely one of the best parts of making this content. If this video gave you something useful, the most valuable thing you can do is share it with someone who needs to hear it. Not because of the algorithm, although sure, that helps, but because there are people in your life who are stuck in this loop and don't know there's another way to feel. Send it to them. It might mean more than you think. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. Real experiments, honest results, no before and after magic. I post every week, and I'll see you in the next one.